So when designing a video game character, what are a few qualities that they might need? First is obviously a good color palette, giving the mascot character a signature color scheme that can't be recognized without a moment's notice. Gotta start the video off with at least mentioning how Sonic and Mario are notorious examples of this case, given their similar but different interpretations of the red, white, and blue color palette. Second, the character obviously needs a good design, one that gives him that edge in the competition to give players to the upcoming franchise something unique, standoutish, and overall iconic enough to be recognized when pointed from a distance, such as Crash Bandicoot, Link from the Legend of Zelda franchise, Capcom's Mega Man, and even the adorable Pikachu from Pokemon. Oh, aren't you just the cutest little thing? Now give me back what you stole from me, you fat fuck. Third, but most importantly, they need a personality, something that speaks to their charm and aesthetics within the game's overarching world that makes them worthy of being involved in your gaming career, such as Bayonetta's sassy dominatrix persona, Devil May Cry's Dante's stylish and cool demeanor, and even Sora's lightheartedness Disney charm from the Kingdom Hearts franchise. Oh, and also Sonic. We gotta mention my boy more than once, you know. And from here, a lot of you guys are gonna be pointing out the fact that, well, yeah, that's a cool story, bro, but what exactly you're getting at here with the concept of character designs? And well, for those that know, you know that with great character designs come a crap load of redesigns. Now, redesigns, first of all, are nothing new in the world of the gaming industry, or really any other media for that matter. With how certain franchises age with its audiences, the need for improvements to the original design of mascot characters are well within the same radar as a means to grow up with the community, so to speak. Not to be confused with art style specifically, where it's really the translation and direction of the design of the mascot character through the lens and perspective of the artist working on that game or project. Redesigns altogether is the need to drastically change the design of the character, all for the sake of presenting something new and refreshing for the player and its future titles. And we have seen these redesigns throughout the course of the gaming industry, leading with some good ones and not so great ones that, yeah, we will get to those soon. For now though, let's dive into some good old redesigns that have helped promote the mascot character and their franchise fairly well and have been the current model for them as of recent. Our first two examples are perfect to start the conversation with, as Sonic and Mario have fairly differed since their debut back in the 80s and 90s. Sonic especially. From a simple design created by Noto Oshima prior to the release of Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis, Sonic's original blue spiky design is quite different from its more modern counterpart that many in the early 2000s grew up with a more smaller body proportion and rubber hose-like element to it that resembles Mickey Mouse. Classic Sonic, as he is called nowadays, was a perfect debut for Sonic, as it shows the likeness and personality of the free-spirited hedgehog hero we all know and love. And then of course, as time went on with the franchise, the design ended up needing a rework for the debut of the Dreamcast, as Sonic Adventure 1998 released, giving us the new design for Sonic, with a taller body proportion, green eyes to boot, and quills that may or may not be a hot debate in the community now due to how long or short they should be, but that's an entire tangent for another day, so let's just leave this point alone for now. Hahaha, get it? Because point and quills, Sonic the Hedgehog, yeah. Well, you guys sure are a fun crowd. Samus Aran from the Metroid series has had her fair share of redesigns too, especially with her iconic Zero Suit design, ranging from a pink leotard and green hair in the original game to the glorious blue and skin-tight jumpsuit with her blonde hair tied to a neat ponytail, which debuted in Zero Mission in 2004 for the GBA. And we also can't forget about the Power Suit and its redesigns as well, from keeping the Morph Ball feature as part of its function to something unique as the Fusion Suit and the Dread Suit for Metroid Fusion and Metroid Dread respectively. Personally a fan of the sleeker design of Metroid Other M, despite what other people have to say about this game otherwise, but there's also like the Prime suit, so why complain, you know? Another good redesign over the years has been Link from the Legend of Zelda franchise, where not only has Link been given the same green tunic, but each have their own versions that add to that style of each game, both in a real, mature sense to even a more wacky and cartoony-like aesthetic, such as Toon Link from Wind Waker. Haha, man, look how adorable he looks. Would be a total shame if the entire Zelda community didn't like this redesign and almost caused the entire Zelda franchise to sink rock bottom, but hey, look how adorable he looks. Now, in terms of these redesigns in the Zelda franchise, my personal favorites have always been the Twilight Princess and the Skyward Sword designs, despite looking quite similar with the brown pants and green tunic, but they speak to the core values of what makes Link the hero that he is, while sticking to more humble beginnings and characterizations, which the same goes with Wind Waker Link given his goofy personality. Of course, there are a lot of other redesigns and renditions of Link over the ages, especially with the current Link taking charge of the 35 years of Zelda history, which that in and of itself is unique and adds an evolution to the character, and the same can even be said with Mega Man himself to kinda jump ahead a bit here. Yeah, the Blue Bomber has had some really cool redesigns to demonstrate the various renditions of Mega Man and their sub-series, or is it just sub-series? Is there really a plural for this word? Huh, I guess there isn't. Let's carry on then. Well, from the original design we know and love to the Mega Man X design where it's slightly edgier in proportions and have this red crystal on its helmet piece, Mega Man has shined a lot in terms of presentation in the late 90s to early 2000s. Now the Mega Man X version is the one I grew up with the most and adds that edginess that the 90s were presenting for the Blue Bomber on the SNES and PS1, but of course we can't also deny the various others we've seen in the early 2000s, ranging from the famous NetNavi legend Mega Man.exe from the Battle Network series to resemble that digital version of the original Mega Man Legends Volt Nut and his treasure hunting gear, to even Star Force's Mega Man design that continues the trends of the Battle Network series. With sidebar here, highly recommend getting a Legacy collection as it's definitely worth your time. The Battle Network one, there isn't one for Star Force yet. Bayonetta, god, we can't not miss an opportunity to talk about her for a second here because she is one that for 3 straight games has some great redesigns that sticks to her dominating charm as the Umbra and Witcher Platinum games. Though from a personal preference, I kinda like Bayonetta's 2 design the most with that blue color tone and shorter hair. Bayonetta regardless always steals the show in whatever she fancies wearing in each entry, and with Bayonetta 3 being her most recent adventures, there surely is no difference despite the more gothic interpretation of her design. Also, yeah, she is a Dami Mommy, and my Dami Mommy at that. You know, I don't regret saying that. Pokemon throughout every generation has numerous redesigns both in character and Pokemon design. Red when he debuted in Pokemon Red and Blue to his Fire Red and Leaf Green design in 2004 is a solid example of how Pokemon has managed to maintain a level of adaptation with each new generation of players, especially when you look back at their Let's Go designs as of recent on the Nintendo Switch. And also their Sun and Moon when they got older, but I think that's also another question in terms of continuity, and I'm not really about to do all that. And hell, I haven't even covered the fighting game realm yet, as that is redesign galore, with Street Fighter 6 being a perfectly good example. I mean, take a good look at Cammy, Chun-Li, and even the Shoto Bros, Ryo and Ken, and you'll see that the times are indeed catching up to them, though looking good as always, Mommy Chun-Li, Big Sister Chun-Li. So far I'm saying that for the most part, redesigns are pretty freaking cool. They're essentially an evolution to the character as the audience grows up with the franchise, but regardless of that notion, sometimes there's still a little bit of some issues here and there in regards to its implementation, and for many that are out there watching this, yeah, you kinda know where this is going. Redesigns, for the most part, emphasis on most here, are rather good. They retain that charm of the original's identity and they present an evolution of the character that seems natural as one would grow up with the respective franchises. But what if they continue to redesign the character to the point where it might as well just be a different character entirely, ruining the reputation and characterization of the character in the first place? Thus enter the reboots into the ring, where video games not only get a new redesign, but they try to get a whole new take on the character, resulting in most of the time good experiences based on bad performances, which, yeah, let's not beat around the bush any longer and talk about Dante from 2013's DMC Devil May Cry. Ironically, a game that got me into the Devil May Cry franchise. For some of you out there, you can already tell where this is going, and honestly I don't blame you at all, despite the gameplay of this game being quite significantly solid at the time. In DMC Devil May Cry, we essentially had a Dante that is considered by many as Dante, with how piss poor his personality was like, unlike the original counterpart alone. But this redesign has far more major issues, starting with the identity of the character. From a wisecracking himbo who knows when to read the room when things are serious, this Dante reeked of the 2010's young adult novel arrogant prick that ruined the fans' hopes of engaging with his character in the first place. Bear that and the lack of white hair until the very end of the game, DMC Dante was just a bad start for a reboot, despite Capcom's intentions of making him stand out from the original Dante. And don't even get me started with the Virgil of this reboot too, man. Talk about someone with a lack of motivation. Next, we have to bring back Sonic into the conversation here, because as far as many are aware, not only were we greeted with modern Sonic, but in 2014, Sega decided to up the redesign with Sonic Boom, something that is the pure definition of ridiculous. and for all the wrong reasons. Sonic and the gang not only looked older, but Sonic's design alone says that Sega thought tape was the way to go and a bandana would work some charm into the mix, which isn't the main problem, but part of an overlying situation with this reboot. I mean, just take a good look at Knuckles and you tell me what they were thinking in terms of making him into a big buff buffoon, But like I said, the redesigns aren't bad, but they felt rather unnecessary given the scope and nature that modern Sonic had already provided, so the need to redesign the blue blur speed was rather pointless here, which the same can also be said with Crash Bandicoot back in the mid-2000s. God, what a flashback this one is. From the lovable goofball to the goofball that somehow had tribal tattoos, the Titan redesign Crash, as I'll call it, was something that didn't really make sense in the scope of Crash period, and the same holds true with this duology regarding its identity. I guess because of the craze of the hack and slash genre and how this was like the mid-2000s, so edgy was the way to go, Titan Crash feels like a blemish in the sense that Dante from Devil May Cry is, despite retaining the qualities of the original counterpart somewhat intact. And still, who even thought of giving Crash a mohawk and jean shorts for this one? Like, this is just like, ugh. Spyro, man, he also got his edgy redesigns back in the early 2000s with the Legend of Spyro series, a reboot of the Spyro franchise that just bombed hard back in its initial release. Not bad games, but definitely something worth of the title of jank. This redesign of Spyro completely lost the luster and charm of what made Spyro such an icon in the first place, and with Skylanders later on in the timeline, that's just a whole other topic right there and then. But we can't forget the biggest elephant in the room, or rather the biggest bear in the room in this poor redesign treatment, as Banjo-Kazooie had theirs as well, thanks to the mediocre madness that was nuts and bolts. Yeah, this one is definitely a topic. Now many already know how bad these redesigns are. Despite again keeping the integrity of the original identity, it's still something stale and lacking in the charm than the N64 games had back in its heyday, much like the rest of the game itself. As you can see already, the biggest problem with redesigns out there is that sometimes they cater to the audience that has already been established while also trying to engage with the newcomers that are also interested in the franchise, resulting in this mixed bag result of a character design that quite honestly sucks ass. Like, we're talking about the stankiest of ass. You see, unless a game is remade or rebooted, there really is no need to redesign a character unless it is a gradual progression such as Sonic, Mario, and plenty of others we can point our fingers at. And even if a game is being remade or rebooted, there also is no point in drastically changing the character anyways, all to cater to that new audience looking to pick up that game that holiday season. It's just that when the time comes for a redesign, it comes at a cost of either rejecting the nostalgic factor of what made the character lovable in the first place, and instead in favor of a new character entirely that has the designs of the original, but doesn't ultimately hit the nail and everything else. Like, I can point you in the direction of a bunch of other characters who got the poor redesign treatment, ranging from Bomberman to even the Prince of Persia himself, though let's be honest here, 2008 Prince of Persia is the best redesign, and you're not gonna convince me otherwise. A full-on redesign really isn't that needed in the grand scheme of things, and if the current designs are just as great and iconic enough to stand out like their previous appearances, then there really is no purpose in adding some additional tweaks here and there. After all, simplicity is the best at the end of the day. Thankfully, nowadays we don't really see much of this issue given that most of the gaming industry prefer to give updated designs while sticking true to the original's identity, such as Cloud Strife in the Final Fantasy Remake games, Leon S. Kennedy back in the RE2 Remake and RE4 currently, and Lara Croft in the rebooted Tomb Raider trilogy. These guys are the same as we know them as before, but they have those added tweaks to stand out from their counterpart without compromising much in the process. For now though, this is all I gotta say about redesigns, but at the end of the day, honestly, I welcome them. I champion the concept of redesigning our favorite video game mascots and characters out there, all for the sake of keeping a level of consistency, because obviously you gotta do it properly, because, well, you can't deny the fact that there's a Street Fighter 6 Cammy design, there's also an Xbox 360 Bomberman, and trust me, no one wants an Xbox 360 Bomberman.